Hi, my name is Tamara. I am on staff with Crew here in South Orange County. I'm so glad that you are tuning in with us today. Now, today we are continuing our series, a very important series that we want to talk about. It's called United in Controversy. It seems like now more than ever, especially in the United States, that we are polarized in our ideas and our ideologies and beliefs. So what does it mean for us to live united in the midst of controversial topics? Well, I'm glad you asked. Now, to dive in, we are going to talk about today a subject that we all love talking about at Thanksgiving and Christmas. So let's talk politics. Okay, I feel like I can hear an audible groan. Let's be real. I hate talking about politics, so it's really funny that I have to give this talk. But I think it's so important for us as believers to be engaged and involved in what is happening in and around us. And as people who live in the United States, we get this incredible opportunity for us to live out of walking with Jesus in regards to politics. Now, before we get started, I know that politics encompasses a lot of things. It can include, but isn't limited to, gun control and the economy, abortion, LGBTQIA plus rights. It can include global warming. It can include, there's so many different aspects and things that can be included under the umbrella of politics. Now, before we get fully into this topic and conversation, I do have to say a couple of things. The first thing is that disagreement does not define divisiveness. Let me repeat that again. Disagreement does not define divisiveness. Just because you might disagree with someone doesn't mean they're being divisive and causing trouble in the unity of Christ. No, you can disagree. I believe we can and we will, as believers, disagree on how living and walking with Jesus is lived out. Second of all, I'm not here to convince you to vote a political way or live out. I'm here to talk more about what it means to actually walk with Jesus in these conversations. The second thing is, we're in the middle of a spiritual warfare. The enemy is very good at what he does. And the enemy is here to really rob, kill, and destroy, to rob us of our trust in each other, to kill our unity and divide us. He is so good at destroying relationships. So good. And as from where I'm standing, he's doing a really good job right now. So just to recognize that there is an enemy working in ways to divide us. How does that matter? And why does that matter right now in this moment? Well, today we're going to be talking about two things. One is really, how do we, as believers, as followers of Jesus, how do we engage with politics? And two, how do we engage with people who think differently than we do? Well, I'm glad that you asked. So here we go. Okay, so I want you to actually take a moment, and maybe even after this talk here, but I want you to look at your life as though you're investigating your own life, how you got to this moment and how you got to this place. Who or what influences your views on politics? What is the family background that you came from? What's your socioeconomic status? How might those things influence your political views? How might your cultural mindset impact your political views? Maybe you come from an individualistic mindset where, like here in America, oftentimes we value people to be their own individual and to make decisions individually. Whereas from a collective culture, do you come from a collective culture where decisions are made oftentimes in groups and people are a part of the group process and groupthink? So where exactly do you get your ideas from? Who do you get them from? Just out of a curiosity, not out of shame, not out of judgment. Be curious about your own life and your own political stances. So first, that's kind of where we need, before we actually get into how do you decide and how do you engage in politics, first, you actually have to look up What's your history? How did you get here? Today we're going to look in a few passages, and one of those passages is in Proverbs. So we're going to look at Proverbs 4:26. It says, "Give careful thought to the paths for your feet, and be steadfast in all your ways." So as we examine our history, we also have to examine where we're going to go, why we're going to go, where we're going to go. As I was thinking about this, I realized I needed a lot of wisdom. So Proverbs is a couple of places that I looked. And even in Proverbs 1, if you'll turn with me there, it says Proverbs 1:5 says, "Let the wise listen and add to their learning, and let the discerning get guidance." So based on this passage, seeking guidance and wisdom is a byproduct of humility. Let me repeat that again. Seeking guidance and wisdom is a byproduct of humility. Because humility says, I don't have all of the answers and I might be wrong. There's something about lowering oneself and saying, I might not have all the answers. So, when we engage moving forward, we have to engage with humble hearts. So what does it mean to love someone? What does it actually look like? Well, Paul says in a great way in Ephesians 4. So let's head there. Ephesians 4:2-6. Paul says, "Be completely humble." There's that word again. "And gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another in love. Make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit of the bond of peace. There is one body and one Spirit, just as you were called to one hope when you were called. One Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of all, who is over all and through all and in all." Okay, so what does that mean for us? How do we actually live that out? Now that we know that we need humble hearts, where do we go from there? What lens do we actually look through, like our voting actions? How do we choose who to vote for? How do we engage in our politics based on Scripture? Well, there's a lot of passages that you can look up, but one of the passages that we're looking in today is Micah 6:8. And Micah 6:8 says this, "He has shown you, O mortal, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? To act justly and to love mercy and walk humbly with your God." Now, it doesn't just say, it says to act justly, not just think about acting justly. And it says to love mercy. Love being in action, it is a verb here in this place, which means it is a demonstration to love mercy. And it's really only a demonstration because we have been given mercy ourselves. And you'll notice it doesn't say and to walk humbly with my specific political party. Hey, it says and to walk humbly with your God. So what does it mean to walk humbly with God in this and to seek God? So many times I have seen people, and I've been a part of it too, is that they hold up their politics higher than they hold up God. What if you're willing to actually not just have your politics inform your spiritual life, but let your spiritual walk with Jesus inform your politics? As followers of Jesus, our view of justice and mercy does not come from this world. Our view of justice and mercy comes from God. And that means we get to align ourselves and realign ourselves to God. And so what does that mean for us to align ourselves and realign ourselves back to God, even in our politics? I know it doesn't give you specific answers, but I'm not here to give you specific answers in regards to politics. I'm here to give you a framework of how for you to engage with God and politics. So how do we engage with people who believe politically different than we do? I'm glad you asked. It you'll head to Proverbs 10:11 through 12. It says this: "The mouth of the righteous is a fountain of life, but the mouth of the wicked conceals violence. Hatred stirs up conflict, but love covers all wrongs." So my question to you today, some of my questions, I guess I could say, is, do your words bring life when you're talking about politics? Or do they bring death and division? Let me repeat that. Do your words bring life and love when it comes to politics? Or do they bring death and division? Now, who better to look at as an example of how to demonstrate to other people who might disagree with you than Jesus? We're actually going to look in John 13:34 through 35. To give you a little context, Jesus had just done 3 years of ministry. He had his disciples with him. He lived life with them. And this was right before he was supposed to go to the cross. This is the Last Supper. And they're sitting down and having food and having a meal, and Jesus is talking to them. He had just washed their feet as a huge demonstration of service and surrender. God of the universe was washing their feet. Just mind-blowing. And here he says, "A new command I give you," which God hadn't given any commands really since the Old Testament. So there's this new command that's coming in. And what does Jesus say? He says, "A new command I give you, love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another." That sounds crazy, because if you think about it, when someone is excessive in their love, the way that Jesus has been excessive with his love to us, like, it's kind of ridiculous, right? It's crazy. And especially for people who might disagree, it looks insane. Like, why would you love somebody who you so disagree with on how, like, following Jesus looks like, right? But you love each other. That's noticeable to the world. That's noticeable. It says, "Be completely humble and gentle." Now, those aren't oftentimes words that I think of when people talk politics. Oftentimes I think of heated debates and anger and a lack of listening. Well, let me tell you, humble hearts hear. They actually hear what people are saying. So I have a question. What is the narrative that you tell yourself about someone who believes differently politically? What assumptions do you make? Is the narrative that you have filled with judgment and disdain and assumptions about that person and their political beliefs? Or is the narrative a humble curiosity? A curiosity of, I want to know more and why that person believes that. What does this say about that person? What priorities and values do they have when it comes to walking with Jesus? Tell me more. I want to learn more about you. There's a humble curiosity that happens when you genuinely care about somebody. So what does it mean for us to genuinely care about people, even in their politics? There is a difference even between listening to respond and listening to understand. Listening to respond means I am already coming up with an argument as you're talking to talk over you, to prove that you were wrong. See, even that, like, there's something about, like, pointing that just feels, awful. Are we listening to understand? Not to prove them wrong, but I want to understand you. That's what Jesus did with us, honestly. He does with us. He knows us so much. He cares about us, who we are. If our hope is in politics, we will be sorely disappointed. Politics won't fix everything. If our hope is in Jesus, ultimately, we win because love wins. Thanks, guys. Have a great night.